Why are we called Negroes? Why are we deaf, dumb, and blind? Why is everybody making progress, yet we seem to be lagging so far behind? Why are we mistreated? Why are we in this condition, stripped of our name, our language, our culture, our God, and our religion? Here in America, all of our religious training has been gotten by the preacher. He has told us of a heaven way up in the sky that we can't enjoy now, but rather after we die. But all of the years that we're living, for us there's nothing but hell, pain, torture, and misgiving. Yet the Bible speaks of a heaven filled with material luxury, which the white man and the preacher has right here, so we see. So my friend, take it for what it's worth. Your heaven and your hell is right here on this earth. So let's check back into history, which rewards all research and tells us plainly that before the white man gained entry to the east, he was living in the caves of Europe, a ravenous beast, eating juniper roots and eating flesh raw, till God sent Moses to civilize him and teach him the law. Then following Marco Polo, an explorer, he gained entry into Asia and Africa. From China, he took silk and gunpowder. From India, he took jute, manganese, and rubber. He raped Africa of her diamonds and her gold. From the Mideast, he took barrels of oil untold, raping, robbing, and murdering everything in his path. The whole black world has tasted of the white man's wrath. So my friend, it's not hard to tell. A white man's heaven is a black man's hell. Came to America, we were living in the east. By the Nile River, we were living in luxury, enjoying freedom, justice, and equality. We wore silken robes and slippers of gold. We were the wealthiest and the wisest people, I'm told. Now we are the poorest of the poor. Nobody wants us at their door. So my friend, it's easy to tell. White man heaven is black man hell. When the white man came to America, he told the Indian, I am your white brother. He said, red man, I'll treat you the best. Yet and still he pushed the Indian further west with his white woman and fire water. Tricks and lies, he stole America. The original owner of this nation is cooped up on a reservation. So my friend, it's easy to tell. White man heaven, black man hell. He needed someone to work the land. His back was too weak. He needed you, black man, so he commissioned Sir John Hawkins to commit the world's most grievous sin, to take a man who's born to be free and bring him down to slavery, to sell a man as merchandise. On his body put a price. Oh, my friend, it's easy to tell. White man heaven is a black man hell.
Welcome to another episode of the LANCESCURV show. We had some technical difficulties last night, and I'm quite sure we're over them now. I worked hard and long to correct them, and as soon as everything was corrected, I was blessed to receive a message from Brother Zamal Tamaray, and he stated that he was raring and ready to go to give us part 2 of when Sheroes ruled the world. Nothing, I have to say, couldn't have been more well timed. So here we are, and this is unexpected. I was so happy. I do have another video up for you after this is over. I'm going to have to push the time back a little bit, but I've been taking care of all of the troubleshooting. I had promised more videos, but like I said, tomorrow's another day, and you know I'm going to make up for what we didn't do today. But more importantly, here is the brother, here is the man, here is the Renaissance man, as I call him. And so we have to know that as brothers, we have to acknowledge the greatness and the seeds of greatness in each other. We're not going to get it from the outside world. So brother, let me let you know that you are great in my eyes. You are talented. You are well versed. You're very well made, even down to your voice. No homo. I'm just saying, you got the perfect voice for what you do, and your demeanor comes off so well. You're like, again, I'm going to say it again, you're like that teacher who came in as a substitute because the regular teacher was sick, but we like you more. So welcome, brother, and I want you to take over and just flow. And I'm glad you're here. You had a chance to share a few words with Mrs. SCURV before we got live, and it's just one big family. I want to extend my love to everybody in the various chat rooms, whether it's Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. We're all in here together, and we're going to keep swinging. And I'm just so glad to witness what you have to share. And I'm going to shut up and let you talk, brother. The floor is yours. Welcome to the show, brother.
Well, I appreciate that, Lance. Very kind words, and it's funny, you mentioned creativity, you mentioned my speaking style, speaking ability, and when I look at you, when I see what you do, I see a lot of you in myself. I see creativity because I've always liked being creative, and I've always liked to sketch and draw just like you. And I mentioned that when I was a little boy, I did draw on the same level, because your level is it's really a high caliber level of art. Even like comic book type, Picasso, rival anything that a Picasso or a Rembrandt would do.
Wow.
In many ways, we are like two peas in a pod. We've had similar life experiences. We've both been in the bodybuilding game, natural bodybuilding, that is. We walk down the same path, and we have the same type of ideology, and it's the same type of mindset, and we have the same type of desire and hope. And we have that sense of service, selfless service for our people. So I'm just glad to be back on. And again, I appreciate those words. But basically, what you say about me, you're saying about yourself, because we're very much alike in many respects. And my sister even told me that. She's like, "Oh, you guys are just alike. You guys think alike, and you draw just like him." And I'm like, "Wow." Well, he draws the way I used to draw, because I haven't picked up a pen and pad in years, since I was a child. But I'm sure if I got back to it, I would be back to your level.
Let me tell you, brother. You the way your mind is, your essence, your intensity, you'd pick that pencil up. All it is mental. You'd be right back on path. Look, I went through a period of 20 years where I didn't touch a pen or a pencil to do anything artistic. From around 1981 when I got out of high school to 2001 when I moved down to Florida to work the night shift in the local jail here in Orange County, when I was bored enough and had enough time to pick it up and got right back on track. And it was because of that period of my life that got me online when somebody uploaded one of my drawings to AOL on one of the hometown pages, and people went crazy over it. And then I decided to do that, and it took off from there. I didn't know I was going to end up doing internet radio or writing and different things, so we just flow. So like I say, this is a starting point for you online with your multiple talents, with the intensity and the fact that you live very clean and you live a Spartan life. This is the best part of your life, and you're going to bring it all out and drop those seeds and plant so many things that are going to go on and grow long after we transition from this period and from this life, but it will serve other people. And that's what I really respect about you, is because you're very concerned about the future generations after we're here. It's easy for you with your brilliance to just take up some sense of carnality and just get into the third dimensional creature comforts, but never make it to the next level. But you have sacrificed all of your life, and you're helping and sharing. And of course, you're helping and sharing me and all those that I know who love you and what you bring. Your spirit is a clean burning spirit. I don't mean burning or anything. I'm just saying it's clean fuel. There's no residue to you. And I'm quite sure everybody can hear this in your voice, in the sincerity in which you do what you do, because you're not looking for anything, but you deserve everything because of what you're doing, because you're so refreshing in this world as it is. You're a light in the darkness. See?
It's funny you say that, because a lot of women thought I was crazy. And I stayed the course.
Yes.
I stayed true to myself, and I said, as much as I love women, I'm like, well, the women be damned. They can do what they want. They can, go, they can go there, pursue their own course in life. I wish them well.
Right.
But I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing.
You have to.
You have to keep on going, brother. To please anybody.
Yes.
So, I have a cousin that said that, and I talked to you about that a little earlier. But even when I was, and you mentioned me as a teacher, I became a teacher. Being a teacher was born out of necessity for me. One reason I became a teacher was when I was a child, I realized just how much of a deficit I had in my education. Here I am going to a public educational school, working in the public educational system, and I'm looking at TV and I'm looking at the newscasters, and they're speaking one language and I'm speaking another language, and I didn't think that was appropriate. I thought that I had to bridge the gap. So I'm watching these people on TV speaking their language, which was English, and I'm looking at the language that I was speaking, and I didn't understand them. So I was obsessed with knowledge anyway, and gaining as much knowledge as possible. So I had to understand what they were talking about, because to me they were talking in code. And plus, given the fact that I had studied Elijah Muhammad, or had heard of him when I was a child, and also Malcolm X.
Yes.
Both of them, advocated, as well as Minister Farrakhan, they advocated that I should study the dictionary. So that's exactly what I did, because I knew at some point that I would have that in my arsenal of tools, and I would need that at some point. I just knew I would need that. So, because, in order to make it in life, you have to be a good communicator. And I found out early on that I was not a good communicator, and I needed to bridge the gap between, what the words that they were using and my lack of understanding. So,
understood.
So, but yeah, I'm glad to be here once again. Greetings out to the global brown family, global melanated family, global indigenous people of planet Earth.
You know what? We're the originals. It all comes from us. All the others are branches, but we're the trunk and we're the root. We're the most important part, because without us, those other things wouldn't exist. So there will be more names that will be made up for us, and there'll be older names, and some of us will roll around the dirt because of the names, but we are who we are. And at this junction point, all we have is us, and we need to go back to the original everything. All of this other stuff that has been stolen from us and taken from us and erected in front of us like it's so majestic, like it's so mighty, and we're in awe from the knockout, from the knockoff. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is the knockoff, and we're in all of that. But look at the original. We look at the computers and cars, but look at our bodies. Look at how our bodies function. And we've been around so long. So this planet is ours. This planet is ours, man. So we're the originals. You see?
Well, the problem is we don't have a basis of comparison, and you, when you study your history, your story, not his story, but your story. When you study your story, you know who you are, and if you don't know who you are, then you're going to be imitating other people.
There you go.
So
there you go.
But last time I started with this topic, when Sheroes ruled the earth.
Yes.
And I got a lot of good positive response, and we talked about the topic of the matriarchy. And again, it's called When Sheroes Ruled the World, or Ruled the Earth, either or. And basically, that was a time of feminine rule on the planet. You know, that was a long-running epoch of female, female celebration, adoration, veneration. And again, I did receive a lot of positive feedback for that. I'm very grateful, and that's just encouraged me to plow on. But actually, I started this this endeavor with part 1, and I have to finish with a part 2, and then there might be a part 3 and a part 4, because if I start with a topic, I want to finish it. I don't want to have any loose ends. So, indeed, this is a taboo topic. It's always given short shrift, even if it's discussed, if it's even discussed at all, in the what they call the glorious propaganda centers, called educational institutions, in the fine halls of their primary and secondary learning, that are little more than mass indoctrination plants, and in those supposedly august establishments of academia that are mere, more or less dumbed down concentration camps. That's what they are.
Yes.
But during our last, I'll say, communion, last time we communed, last time we had a meeting of the minds, or maybe a meeting of the griots. That's what we are. We're modern day griots. So I provided you, the listening audience, with some relevant definitions.
Yes.
Because I learned from a great communicator, or multiple communicators, that the best way to impart information was to tell people what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And that's what I always try to do, so that everybody's on the same page. And I've studied, very great speakers, even if Louis Farrakhan, even Adolf Hitler, mesmerizing speaker. Doesn't mean I agree with his politics, but he was a mesmerized speaker. And I'm not like either one of those speakers or teachers, but I have my own style, but I have incorporated some things I learned from them.
Yes.
So, we defined different terms. Last time we spoke, we defined what a matriarchy is, what fratriarchy is, etc. And we spoke about the transition that the scholars described as, or from the matriarchy to the fratriarchy. Of course, the fratriarchy was the time when you had a combination of male and female rule. So we talked about the change from the matriarchy to to what they call the fratriarchy, to what we have now is the present day patriarchal system. And we also dealt with, if I remember correct, we dealt with what I call the old world order. That was the time of feminine rule. It was also known as, you can also refer to it as the prehistoric era, or times of antiquity. You can call it the Paleolithic era, Stone Age, the Pleistocene era, which is Ice Age, Neolithic era, a time of agricultural societies. So we talked about those. We also talked about, I provided some of my research sources. And then I also outlined the 3 major points that I need to cover in this presentation. And basically, point number 1 was that the feminine once held the powers of planetary governance. The feminine once had the powers of planetary governance. Point number 2, the feminine possessed the power of self-reproduction. That's right, self-reproduction. Point number 3 was a descriptive account of exactly how the feminine lost these powers. And I didn't get to that yet, but we will get to that later.
Yes.
Looks like we ended that time, I think, around that time where I provided cultural evidence providing thesis number 1, that the feminines were, in fact, our planetary governors. And I used linguistic and, of course, literary type of proof. So, the linguistic, when you deal with linguistic or linguistics is language-based type of evidence. So while literary evidence would be just evidence that's found in literature itself. So, but before we get to the literary, we want to look at some of the linguistic proofs, and then we'll get to the literary information. So in terms of the linguistic footprints, there are residuals or remnants of a feminine world order, and those remnants are embedded in the language itself. Like if you look at the word matrimony contains 2 roots. You have the root mater, M-A-T-E-R, for mother, and then you have the suffix moni. Mm-hmm. So mother moni, what does that mean? Mother moni describes marriage, and it actually means marriage by the mother, or specifically a mother marriage. So why is it defined in that manner? It actually means married by mother-in-law. That's what it means. It means married by mother-in-law, because in antiquity, the bride's mom, the bride's mother, not the groom's father, but the bride's mother, bore the responsibility of accepting the husband to be, that is. So according to different sources like Quora.com, I looked up Quora.com. The terms derive from the Latin word matrimonium. So matrimonium is just, it's a union of 2 words. Mother, of course, with M-A-T-R, mater, mother, plus munus. Munus would be, refers to a task or a duty. So in Roman law, for example, the matrimonium, as it's called, the matrimonium was the task of the mother, and she was required to legitimize a marriage. And then, of course, you had patrimonium, which is related to the word patrimony. Patrimonium was the task of the father, so they were different. So look also at the word husband. Husband has 2 roots, H-U-S, hus, not as in hussy, but hus, and then you have the word band. So hus plus band. It actually means house bound. If you ever look that up, it means house bound.
Wow.
It means bound to his house, but to not to his house, but bound to the house of his mother family. Bound to the house of his mother family, or his wife's family, because in those times there was no concept of what they call private property. So let's examine the testimony found in some other words, like, for example, the word inheritance. Everybody hears that word, inheritance. Inheritance refers to a family's physical wealth. It's really if you break that word down, the word is really inheritance. Inheritance. And it indicates how she was originally at the core of a family's physical wealth, because wealth was originally transferred in what they refer to as a matrilineal fashion through the line of the mater, the matrix, or the mother. That's how wealth was transferred. So another word, heritage, H-E-R-I-T-A-G-E, heritage. It's really her-I-tage. Her-I-tage. And if you look the word up in the Merriam's Webster Dictionary, they have a couple definitions for it. One definition was it referred to property that descends to another, or actually property that descends to an heir. And of course, the word heir contains the word her, right? Heir is spelled H-E-I-R. So heir contains the word her. So it said that property that descends to an heir, the definition is another way of basically saying property that descends to her, because that's how property was originally transferred through the female line. And the second definition that they gave was a legacy or inheritance, something transmitted from a predecessor, and that predecessor was a her. It was a her. And the third definition they gave was it related to birthright, also a word that is associated with the her. So today, when you say heir, H-E-I-R, heir, a person that inherits, the meaning is actually corrupted by male supremacists to refer to a male, while the word heiress, H-E-I-R-E-S-S, the word heiress is the word that describes a female that inherits property. That's associated with a female. So just like when you say the word God to describe a male god versus goddess to describe a female god, but when you think about it, the word heir actually, it already means her. And the suffix that they add, the ESS, which signifies a female, is merely repeating what the word already means. And then another word you can look at is hereditary. Of course, you see the word her. It's really hereditary if you break the word down. And again, the primary word is being her. So hereditary or heredity, that refers to a family's genetic wealth. Genetic wealth. Because the mtDNA, the mitochondrial DNA, or the genetic wealth, that's the genetic wealth, the mitochondrial DNA. The genetic wealth, like the family's physical wealth back in those days, only would pass through the line of the female and not the male. Because that's what happens with mitochondrial DNA right now. You can only get that from your mother, not from your father. So now, it could be argued that the word feminine is, according to a handbook, which is actually a Satanist handbook for people that were witch hunters back in the days of the witch burning era back in Europe. There was a Satanist handbook called the Malleus Maleficarum. Malleus Maleficarum doesn't even sound like a friendly name or friendly word, but it's related to the Latin word feminist, F-E-M-I-N-U-S. And the word feminist consists of two roots, phi, F-E, and minus, or phi plus minus, phi minus. Phi, according to them, means lacking, or minus, meaning faith, or actually phi means lacking, and minus means faith, or minus faith. So basically what they were saying, obviously this is a verbal slight, in an underhanded means of inferiorizing women as lesser members of the human family. Because, the word, but when you think about it, the word feminine also contains the word or the number 9. And 9 happens to be the highest number of all numbers. Why is that? Because whenever the number 9 is multiplied, if you ever take the number 9 and multiply by any other number, the product always equals the sum of 9. Proof. 9 times 1 is what? 9. 9 times 2 is what? 18. 18 is 8 and 1. 8 plus 1 is 9. 9 times 3, 27. 7 and 2 is 9. 9 times 5, 45. 5 and 4 is 9. You can go down the line. 9 times 8, 72. 7 plus 2 is 9. So that is the highest number. 9 is the number of perfection. The way your hair curls in a 9 pattern. And they call it a 9 ether. We call it a 9 ether pattern. There is actually a book called, Who is God, Male or Female? It says on page 17. It says that a fertilized egg reaches the uterine cavity about 72 hours after fertilization. A fertilized egg reaches the uterine cavity about 72 hours after fertilization. And 7 plus 2, of course, equals 9. That's not a coincidence. In that book, Who is God, Male or Female? Yet another work written by Panabab Yanun, as I mentioned him in previous talks. Now, the association of a female or the feminine with the highest number is not an accident. Rather, it's a way of bearing secret homage to the supreme creator of life on earth, which would be the feminine. Of course, there's also a tie-in between that word, feminine, and the 9 months of pregnancy. So, the sun also represents the number 9. 9 is the highest expression of life, and the sun would be considered the supreme generative force, the supreme generative force in our solar system, because the sun is what we call the 9 ball if you count the planet starting in reverse. If you start from the planet Neptune and you count all the way to the sun, instead of counting the planets from the sun outward to the last planet Neptune, and Pluto we don't even really count at all. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. Years ago, Baba Yanun answered questions put forth by his sister. His sister wrote a book called My Brother the Extraterrestrial. My Brother the Extraterrestrial. He also wrote a book called Behind the 9 Ball. We talked about the 9 ball, the being behind the 9 ball, and how we as a people are behind the 9 ball. But let me read that for a second here. On pages 116 and 117 of My Brother the Extraterrestrial, this question was asked. Let's see, 116. Okay, here's the question. The question is, so just what is 9 ball or behind the 9 ball? Answer. I have been asked that since 1962 AD. So let me tell you. You see, when you look at this solar system, that they will say it has 9 planets starting from the sun. 1, Mercury. 2, Venus. 3, Earth. 4, Mars. 5, Jupiter. 6, Saturn. 7, Uranus. 8, Neptune. And 9, Pluto. They call it a solar system because Pa-Reye, the sun, that's how we say the sun in our language, Pa-Reye, the sun, is the center or solar with the planets moving around it. Yet again, they are wrong because the whole system is not in order. For you see, sis, the so-called last planet Pluto or Pluton is out of order. Planet comes from planan, the word planan meaning wander in Greek, and that is exactly what it does. All the other planets have a circular orbit except Pluto. It moves in its own orbit with an orbit like a squashed circle, and it is inclined 17 degrees. And because its plane of orbit varies, sometimes it is above the plane of the other planets and sometimes below it. So in fact, it is not working as a part of this system of movements around the sun. So if you count from outside looking inward, you must start with Neptune as 1, then Uranus as 2, Saturn as 3, Jupiter as 4, Mars as 5, Earth as 6. Sex, because 6 is related to sex, the number of imperfection. Venus as 7, Mercury as 8, and then the sun itself as 9, or the 9th ball, or 9 minds, Nagaru, Negroids, sun children. And so that's what that was his answer to that question that was asked. So, here's another word I just thought about. The word divine. You know, when you say the word divine, do you know what you're really saying? The word divine is from the Latin word divus. The Latin word divus, D-I-V-U-S. And the Latin word divus comes from another Latin word, diva, or diva. And of course, a diva is a goddess, or also defined as a female deity. But why do you refer to the God of the Bible, a male? Why is he depicted as divine? That's a subtle confession right there of a feminine order. Because the Creator is not solely male. It was originally looked upon as a mother. So this brief overview of the linguistic features of the language, it just demonstrates how the truth has been buried, or even entombed, if you want to call it that, with what I call magic words. You know, buried in plain sight, in a sense. So now you have some of the etymological, some of the cultural, and of course the linguistic proof of a matriarch existing in ancient times. And so what we want to do now is look at some of the literary evidence that deals with the matriarchy. How we going, Lance? Loud and clear? I'm hoping you guys can hear me loud and clear. Okay, let's get to the literary evidence. Probably one of the most telling examples referencing the demise of the matriarchy could be found in the interpretation of a Greek trilogy written by Aeschylus. The name of the trilogy is called the Orestia. The Orestia. It's spelled O-R-E-S-T-E-I-A. It's written by Aeschylus, or Aeschylus. I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It's A-E-S-C-H-Y-L-U-S, written by Aeschylus. And part one of that story was called Agamemnon. Part two of the story was called the libation bearers. And part three of the story was called the Eumenides. The Eumenides. E-U-M-E-N-I-D-E-S. So basically the characters are as follows in the story. You had a queen named Queen Clytemnestra. Queen Clytemnestra. Then you had the king, King Agamemnon. Then you had their daughter. The daughter's name was Iphigenia. I-P-H-I-G-E-N-I-A. The son's name was Orestes, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. O-R-E-S-T-E-S, the son. And then you had the Eumenides. The Eumenides were also known as the Fates, also called the Furies. They represented the old world planetary order of the feminine, also called the Furies, as I mentioned, the Furies, or the Fates. Then, of course, you had other characters in the story. Athena was a character in the story. Then you had Zeus was a character in the story, and Apollo also played a very pivotal role in the story. So in part one, if you read that trilogy, you'll read, just to give you a synopsis, you had Queen Clytemnestra. She responds to the treachery of her husband, King Agamemnon. What he did was he sacrificed their daughter, Iphigenia, on the pretense that she was to marry someone named Achilles. So he sacrificed his own daughter. So once the king returns from the Trojan War, Clytemnestra executes him by stabbing. And then in part two, the libation bearers, you had the son, Orestes. He was driven to avenge his father's murder, first by executing his mom's new consort and his own mom, Clytemnestra herself. And then, of course, you had part three. In part three of this trilogy, you had the Eumenides, or the Furies, who represent, as I mentioned, the old world order of the feminine earthly stewardship, protectors of society and executors of justice. So what happened in the story was that to prove the innocence of Orestes, or Orestes, Apollo takes the ludicrous position that since a male's seed can give birth to children without the necessity of a female, this was Apollo's position, that a male's seed could give birth to children without a female. Clytemnestra cannot possibly even be considered to be his mother. And if she is not the mother, reasoned Apollo, then Orestes is not guilty, which is crazy. So in the story, all of a sudden, suddenly Athene, or Athena, she springs full grown from the head of Zeus, her father, and she confirms Apollo's ridiculous contention as fact. And then at the chorus, or the Eumenides, or the Furies, as I mentioned, they represent the old order. They exclaim in horror that the gods of the younger generation, you have destroyed the laws of an elder time, torn them out of my hands. So in other words, the female world order was forcibly overthrown and replaced by a new social order that has basically devalued them while propping up the male. So if you contrast, or if you compare and contrast the different time periods with the old order on the one side and the backwards new order on the other side, you'll notice a huge difference. And in between both, you had that transitional period that I mentioned, the transitional period when the matriarchy became a mixed or a hybrid version of itself, according to the research. So you have the pre-patriarchal, pre-male domination, prehistoric or Paleolithic female-centered old world order, and then you have the hybridized transitional social order called the fratriarchy, a combination of female and male governance, which is what it was. And finally, you have the extreme version, the male-dominated social order that we have now. And it looked like this. The female Neolithic old world order was characterized by things like the veneration of the Divine Mother, peaceful imagery of nature, a celebration of the generative, nurturing, and creative powers of nature. And of course, by contrast, in the system of male domination, you had the glorification of violence and brute force. You had the veneration of the battle axe and the thunderbolt, as well as sword-wielding male deities like Indra that we discussed in part 1. Indra, the god of the Aryans. So in the female old world, you had the absence of heavy fortifications and resources devoted to military defense. However, in the male-dominated new order, you have a preponderance of military fortresses, military fortifications, and whatnot. Whereas in the feminine social order, that was more of an equalitarian or an egalitarian, or what you would call a non-class-based type of order, versus the male-dominant order, which was more stratified, hierarchical, or class-based, and rife with social inequalities, like similar to what we have right now. So the transition, or the changing of the guard, if you want to call it that, could be seen even in depth in the burial rites and practices of, say, the female governance of old Europe versus the male dictatorship of the new Europe. In the female governance of the old Europe, just as an example, you had no extreme differences in grave size. And on the other hand, under the male despotism or the male dictatorship of the new Europe, after the males took over, you had glaring size differences in the male graves versus the female graves. So basically, for example, when men died, they often had to have a mass murder. And they included their slaves, their concubines, their wives, their children. They buried them all together. The Indo-European Kurgan invaders started it, and the Indians later adopted that practice. Then you had what they called the funerary gifts. So that's where all of the contemporary trappings of social status, like let's say nowadays, if you get buried and you're a man of status, quote unquote status, and you have a Rolls Royce, they bury you in a Rolls Royce. Or if you're a man of status, they bury you with all of your wealth, with your dollar bills. Like some of these rappers, when they get buried, some of them do some ridiculous things. But back in those days, the trappings of social status were buried with the male. So that would include things like cattle scapulae, cattle bones, pig and boar mandibles, the mouth horns on the pigs and the boars. They were buried with those types of contemporary trappings. Those were trappings of social status. They buried themselves with dog skeletons, pig and boar mandibles, dog skeletons, cattle scapulae, things like that. And that was all owing to their value as a food source. And of course, if you get buried today and you're a man of status and you want to go out with a bang, you'd get buried with the contemporary trappings of your day, of the 21st century. So in the genocracy, we talked about that before, the period of female authority. The genocracy of female authority, you had a situation where the indigenous clan mothers or the communal, they had the communal control of resources for the benefit of all. And then, of course, you had that transitional period of the fratriarchy, said to be in Neolithic times. And then, of course, you had on the other extreme the order of male supremacy, characterized by ownership of private property and women. So private property and women owned by them through a male line for private gain. And I'm sure you guys can see the difference. So as I mentioned before, these are the enemy's timelines and terms, not our terms, because not only are they a relatively new arrival on the planet, 6,000 years to be exact, and that's according to their own records. But in addition to that, they are a created group of people. There's another great work written by the same person, Baba Yanun. He wrote a book called Let's Set the Record Straight. I think it's about a 500-page book. Also known, of course, as Malachi's New York. He showed how all of their countries described an action or a state, or the names of their countries were based on an action, based on a state, or based on a mythological event. But they never explain exactly where they originated from. For example, the word Ireland, you have the word, it means ire. The word Russia refers to an action, the action of rowing. German refers to a characteristic, germ, man. It names a characteristic or a state or an action or a mythological event, but it doesn't tell you where they came from. Look at what they call themselves in the movie Gladiator, for example. You had the black slave, the Moor, as he was called in the movie. Russell Crowe was the beast, and they don't even refer to themselves as human. So what did the astronauts say when they supposedly went to the moon? They said, it's a small step for man and a giant leap for mankind. So which one is man and which one is mankind, or a kind of man? Now, just a moment ago, we dealt with the control of resources being in the trustworthy and capable hands of the clan mothers. And those resources were under communal control, or controlled by the community. So the irony is this. The maniacs that created communism, the ones that created communism only created a noble-sounding political imitation, albeit a synthetic or counterfeit one at that, one that mimics the authority of the indigenous clan mothers.
My brother, let me just interject and say that we can hear you, but the connection is breaking up slightly. We hear you, but it's getting a little like maybe if you move to a different spot, or if you're on a headpiece or whatever, but we still hearing everything, but it's getting like really thin and tinny, like one of those old radios with no bass. So no, you're good though, but you're coming through loud and clear.
I'm on a hardwire connection.
Wow. Well, you're still coming through. We're not missing anything, but it just begins to sound that way, whatever. But continue on, don't let that bother you. I'm monitoring everything, and I'm also recording this separately, so we're good.
Thanks for letting me know that, yeah.
Okay.
Well, basically I was making the comparison that the people that created communism, it's basically a synthetic or a counterfeit version to mimic the authority of the indigenous clan mothers. control of and distribution of resources. And it's ironic for two reasons. One, the propagators of the scheme called communism are males, not females. And two, the propagators they're aliens. They're not even indigenous members of the human family. They're ones that just recently arrived on the planet. So the root word communism, the root of the word communism, you find the word commune, or commune, as in communal or group ownership. And that's something that was only practiced by matriarchies, never by patriarchies. So if you ever study communism in its bare form, you'll find that it's nothing more than a rich man's utopian con used to dupe the masses. And it was created by the same people or the same tribe that created its supposed opposite of capitalism. So although the last region of genocentric or female authority, the last region it was represented by the civilization of Crete. For those of you that remember the civilization of Crete, that was a black civilization, and that was overthrown approximately 3,000 years ago. Any type of aggressions, abuse, or hostilities that followed, in their eyes, in the eyes of the villains or the aggressors, any type of aggressions or abuses or hostilities that followed that were absolutely necessary from their standpoint. What do I mean by that? Because all of these abuses and rapes and whatnot were mere what you could call mop-up operations, cleanup operations, all designed to eradicate any holdovers or remnants or any what they will call vestigial remains of the goddess culture. So from a military standpoint, and this was a military operation, no question about it, it was done for consolidative purposes, like an insurance policy for empire maintenance in a preemptive effort to prevent a resurgence of old world order sympathizers. Basically to secure their position, to solidify their power base, and to win the hearts and minds of the people after winning the actual shooting war. Once the patriarchy prevailed, they had to seal the deal. They had to cement their position. So just like missionaries are sent in after military conquest in so-called third world nations, of course the missionaries are sent by their representative nations to win the ideological war. Take Nazi Germany, for example, after the overthrow of Adolf Hitler, where the German people were the subject of what they called a denazification program. In this denazification program, all the literature, all the novels, all the books, all the media, they were rewritten, whitewashed, laundered, if you want to say that, so as to make it palatable enough to sell to the people, with all the gory details expunged. So during the communist years, they also had a de-Russification campaign. When they had communism in Russia, in Iraq, they had a de-Sodomization campaign, if you want to call it that. And you can imagine what they did in Japan more recently, and also in Libya after Gaddafi. I'm told they had a kill list that involved, included in that mop-up operation. Yeah, there was an actual list of people to eliminate, a pro-Gaddafi element that they wanted to eliminate. And look at black people in America, now American Negroes. We also had a de-Africanization program. We walked in one door with an African mind and emerged on the other side 400 years later as a new creation, as Negro converts. Negro converts who say things like, I ain't no African. I ain't going to no Africa. Not realizing that we have underwent a metamorphosis. We've changed. And as devotees to the new belief system I call the I ain't no African religion, if you were to look up such a term in the dictionary, it would probably read as follows. I ain't no Africanism. A perplexing, irrational, and self-negating religious practice exhibited by a large percentage of the black diaspora. That's probably what it would say if you read that in a dictionary about people that have that mental disease, which is a great many of our people. So there you have the cultural, you have the historical, you have the literary, you have the linguistic. You also have some of the anthropological evidence of female rulership in ancient times. And of course, this information only scratches the surface. As I mentioned before, this is not meant to be an exhaustive account, but it is meant to fill in the blanks. So the next thing we can look at is we can examine the evidence that women can reproduce without men. I'm sure everybody's been waiting for this part. We can examine the evidence that women can in fact reproduce without men. And there's basically three ways I intend to prove this. The first way is with natural evidence occurring in nature. The second way is with cultural evidence. And the third way is with medical evidence. So the first way, with natural evidence, this proof that women can reproduce on their own is provided in the natural world. And the second way, the cultural proof that proves that women can self-reproduce, is derived from legends, myths, fables, religious accounts, suppressed historical accounts, and of course these stories are abundant all over the earth. And then there's a third way. The third way would be the medical evidence. And the medical evidence would include things like medical case studies, genetic and biological facts about men and women, medical operations and experiments, structure and characteristics of male and female human reproductive organs, and other miscellaneous medical proofs. So first, let's talk about the natural evidence. Now, in nature, for those of you that study nature, I'm a nature lover. If you ever take the time to study nature, you'll find that there exists a concept called parthenogenesis, and we talked about that in part one. But parthenogenesis basically means that an organism has the ability to reproduce or clone or copy itself. And there are various types of animals in the natural world that can actually reproduce in this very way. You have invertebrates, those creatures with no backbone, no vertebral column. Invertebrates can do it. You have reptiles that can do it. You have mammals that can do it. And human females. So animals like black-tip sharks, hammerhead sharks. If you've ever heard of animals like whip-tailed lizards, various snakes, they can do it. Certain fish, certain types of birds, certain types of scorpions. The Komodo dragon can reproduce parthenogenetically. You have bees, wasps, ants, butterflies, they can do it. You have different types of flies, aphids, different types of, you have those animals, they call them flukes. Water fleas can reproduce this way, like daphnids, DAPHNIDS. You have crustaceans, you have fowls, I think I mentioned that, birds. You have some mammals that do this, they call it pathological parthenogenesis. And when frogs reproduce parthenogenetically, they call it pathological parthenogenesis as well, because according to them, that's not supposed to happen. And of course, that list of creatures that can reproduce in this way is not an exhaustive list. There's many other creatures that can do that. So if you refer to articles like Virgin Mammal Rewrites the Rules of Biology, that talks about that. Or another article, Termites in Japan Without Males, is another article. And there's many articles that you can research in that arena. So now we have the natural evidence that virgin births are possible in the animal kingdom, but haven't yet proven it for human females. And that brings us to the next proof, and that is the cultural evidence that females have a latent ability to reproduce without a man. So what is the cultural evidence? If you review the historical, the mythical, and all the contemporary accounts, you will find one thing, and the one thing that will continue to pop up will be that the Virgin Mother Goddess theme is a universal theme. when you do the research, you'll find that virgin births they're found in almost every single Earth culture. For example, every single Native American tribe that I've researched has oral traditions of virgin births. They call them the ceremonies of divine conception. Name a tribe, whether it's a Chippewa or Iroquois, Zuni, and you'll find the same stories. Go to Africa, and you'll even find tribes consisting of all females. And history, of course, also indicates that matriarchies existed in our remote past, and women were capable of virgin births. So let's look at virgin births in religion. Not only are stories of virgin births existing in world cultures, but nearly all world religions and myths are replete with stories of virgin births. So these religious stories existed long anterior to the Christian virgin birth. And I'll digress and I'll say this: that Christian story was actually a plagiarized copy of much earlier stories. And when the Christian bandits started exploring, for example, they found that the people in all of these far-flung lands had the same stories and similar rituals and similar practices about a man born of a virgin that died and resurrected. So they had to come up with a response, albeit a ludicrous response. And that response was, I'm sure you guys want to know what the response was. They found that all these people in all these different lands were practicing the same types of rituals that they professed to originate. They actually said that the devil taught the so-called pagan people around the world the same thing, and that God taught them as Christians, which was a pretty feeble argument. So just to give you a short list of saviors born of a virgin goddess, here's a list. You have Zoroaster of Persia. You had Krishna of India. You had Mithras of India in Persia. You had Hercules of Rome. He was called Heracles in Greece. You had Attis of Phrygia or Galatia. You had Quetzalcoatl of Mexico. You had Horus of Egypt. Alcides of Thebes. You had Issa of Arabia. You had Silvahana of India. Also Zeus of ancient Greece, and not to mention Buddha of ancient India. Now take Zoroaster of Persia, for example. Zoroastrianism is a religion in Persia, or originating in Persia. It was similar to other savior gods born of a virgin via immaculate conception type story. Performed miracles. This Zoroaster performed miracles, born of a virgin, had an immaculate conception, cast out demons, restored sight to the blind. This man was also called the Word made flesh, and these teachings were long anterior to Christianity. That's Zoroaster. And take a look at Krishna in India. Krishna, his father happened to be a carpenter, just like the father of Christ. Krishna was born on December 25th to one Devaki, his mother, a virgin mother. Devaki, his mother, Devaki. And this all kind of ties in with the video that I did prior to the last video, Christianity versus sun worship. It breaks all that down, if you guys care to look at that. But look at Hercules or Heracles. Heracles was a sun god. He had 12 labors corresponding to the 12 zodiac signs and the 12 disciples of Christ, all sun worship related. And his mom, Alcmene, Alcmene, also called Alcmena or Alcmena, his mother was also a virgin. So Hercules was born of a virgin, and he was a sun god and had 12 labors. And then, of course, you have the Phrygian Galatian god called Attis, Attis, Attis. He was a Galatian Phrygian god, basically in the region of Turkey. This god Attis was slain for mankind's salvation, born on December 25th of a virgin named Nana, Nana. And just as an aside, it's funny how this character Paul in the Christian Bible says in Galatians chapter 3, around verse 13, "Cursed is everyone that hangs on a tree." When a known practice, this was a known practice that was in place where symbols of Attis were commonly hung on a tree in that part of the world. And this, of course, is before the Christian church was even created, just to give you an idea of how they plagiarize information. But before the Christian terrorists even came to the shores of America, you had Quetzalcoatl, that many of you may be familiar with. Quetzalcoatl was derived, he was the god of the Mexicans, or the Aztecs. He was derived from the Mayan god Kukulcan, spelled Kulkulcan. So Quetzalcoatl was derived from the Mayan god Kukulcan. And Quetzalcoatl was born of a mother, her name was Xochiquetzal, also called Xochiquetzal, spelled Zochiquetzal, or spelled Sochiquetzal, or Zochiquetzal. And of course, like I mentioned, Quetzalcoatl was born of a mother, Xochiquetzal. She was said to be a pure virgin. And then, of course, you have Mithra of India and Persia, hundreds, if not thousands of years before or prior to Christianity. And like other savior gods, he too performed miracles. He also was a sun god, and he was also the way, the truth, and the light. So in a brazen display of copycat nature, the papacy of the Roman Catholic Church is even said to be built right on the very site, or right on top of the Mithraic site. They used to worship Mithras, Mithras, buried on the exact same site where they used to worship, the so-called pagans used to worship Mithras, after it had been successfully suppressed as a rival to Christianity and or Catholicism. So instead of them being creative and creating a religion from scratch, they simply copied somebody else's. You know, what they basically did was they stole someone else's cultural framework and they built a house on top of it. And then, of course, you have Horus, the son of Aset, a.k.a. Isis Mary, son of the god Osiris, who was also allied with 12 disciples. He too transfigured on a mount. He raised El-Azarus, E-L-A-Z-A-R-U-S, from the dead, just like Christ raised Lazarus, another name for Asar, or Osiris, by the way, of the Bible, from the dead. And most important, his mom, the mom of Horus, was also a virgin. And the last two I mentioned are in relation to this topic of parthenogenesis, extremely probably of extreme importance because of the manner in which the virgin births were said to have occurred. The first one is the Greek god Zeus, and the Greek god Zeus was said to have impregnated Danae, D-A-N-A-E. The story goes that Zeus impregnated Danae with a son, Perseus, and the son was conceived, quote, in a shower of gold. Now, this won't make sense to you right now, but it will later on when I tie that in with parthenogenesis. And, of course, you also have the next one, that was Buddha. Buddha was also born on December 25th. I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that. Buddha was born on December 25th. He, too, performed miracles, healed the sick, walked on water, had 12 disciples, also born to a virgin. His virgin mother's name was Maya. It wasn't Mary, but it was Maya. Sounds very similar to Mary, huh? And Buddhism was another religion far in advance of the newly invented Christianity, because the Buddhist missionaries, they penetrated every corner of the known ancient world. And so, like Zeus, Buddha was conceived in a very special virgin birth. There are many stories exist about Buddha's conception, There are also lesser-known stories indicating how his mom was actually impregnated. In those lesser-known stories, she was impregnated by a Holy Ghost in the form of a white elephant, surrounded by light, like the sun, or she was impregnated through her left side by, quote-unquote, sunbeams. Sunbeams. Now, that won't make any sense to you now, but like I mentioned, later on it'll make a lot of sense. Probably in another section, another segment. It turns out that the shower of gold used by Zeus to impregnate Danae is the same substance used to immaculately conceive Buddha, and that is sunlight. So please file that in your mental cabinet, because later I'll explain the significance between gold, sunlight, and parthenogenesis. And now, of course, there are myths, and of course people would say these are myths. They were written by delusional people. These people were crazy. They were from ancient times, so the Native Americans, basically they will be saying that the Native Americans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the ancient Near and Middle Eastern people, and all of the other people were all lunatics, right? These were all backwards people, unsophisticated people, primitive folks that basically had a mass hallucination. Or is there more to these myths, as they call them? So we'll revisit all these points. What's that?
Oh, no. I was saying something. I didn't know the mic was open. I was showing the part of Ghana that our brother said he was from. But continue, brother. Sorry.
Oh, no, sir. That's okay. So basically, we'll revisit all these points later, and I'll flesh the whole thing out. So we've looked now at the natural evidence and the cultural evidence indicating that women have the ability to reproduce without a partner. So now let's look at the hard medical evidence, which you will definitely find to be most compelling. In fact, the medical evidence of a woman's latent ability is irrefutable, as you shall soon see. I mean, even in contemporary times, virgin births are being reported. Like I saw one example from the British Medical Journal. It said, British Medical Journal, UNC study finds numerous virgin births reported in U.S. since mid-1990s. Then I saw another article, The Science of Virgin Births, is another article that, pretty much exemplifies that. So, that's where we are right now. And sit down, and again, we'll get into the medical aspect, the hard medical evidence that proves women have the latent ability to reproduce on their own. And I think I've given you guys enough for today.
Oh, you can keep feeding us. We're like pigs when it comes to you, brother. We'll just soak up all the knowledge. Trust me.
Pigs. Well, the next time we talk, we're going to get into the hard medical evidence, and I'm going to give you studies that you've never heard of before. For all the naysayers that say that it's not possible, that it's ridiculous, you're going to get all the hard science, all the different scientific studies. And the funny thing is that these studies were done hundreds of years ago, and here we are in the 21st century, and we're not even privy to this information, which shows you that we are receiving a junk form of science. This is junk science. Everything that they teach us is junk. Junk politics, junk law, so junk legal system, junk judicial system, junk electoral system, junk scientific system, junk medical system, junk food processing system, junk culture. And I'll also give you guys more of the, more of the research, because that section, it'll probably be 2 or 3 more sections to go, because there's a lot of evidence, a lot of hard data, and I know everybody's been waiting for that. But that being said, time-wise, I definitely want to keep these shorter, more digestible for people, so that people that would otherwise be inclined to listen would be able to see, oh, that's not a long video, I can listen to that. Because people have such short attention spans nowadays, Maybe that's different for older people, but kind of want to appeal to everybody. I want everybody to hear this and let them do their own research and teach me something. You know, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say. And a lot of people, I do want to say this. This is one thing I definitely want to say. A lot of people ask about the master teacher. They're like, well, if this guy is a master teacher, why is he in prison? Why can't a master teacher get himself out of prison? And my answer is as follows. First of all, you have to understand that there's a spiritual protocol to everything. You know, look at the world of the beast man. Although he's a beast, he too follows the protocol. Mm-hmm. Before he implements any nefarious type of plan, he tells you years in advance, in all of his movies or in his productions. For example, with this so-called virus thing, I refuse to mention the name of it to prevent, invoking more power into it, adding more power to it. There was a play, an Olympian play that occurred around 1992 that someone sent me the other day. And in the play, they showed it was on a big stage. It was a huge production. On the stage, they had a big circular thing that looked exactly like a virus. And they had people in hospital beds, and the people were sick. And then they were made rendered sick by some people that came into on the stage dressed as a virus, as a disease, as a plague. And one of the people that was in the beds was one of the people from the British royal family with the blonde hair, looked exactly like him. And of course, the Brits had reported that he was actually in the hospital because of this so-called virus. So this was planned years in advance. And if you really want to know how they plan years in advance, go back and listen to my first video, Plandemic, and I'll show you exactly how they plan things years in advance with a lot of evidence. This is for the naysayers, the people that don't, that are married to the establishment story. So back to what I was saying. He plans everything years in advance because he too has a protocol that he has to follow. So if you don't believe me, like I said, watch Plandemic Lies and what we can do about it. Watch that video. So in order for him to initiate anything, any policy, no matter how insidious, he needs to have your consent. For example, he cannot set up a cashless society unless a large portion of people are dependent on credit cards. He can't have an online marketplace unless a majority of people or a large enough majority of people want to shop online. He can't dictate GMO food consumption if everyone shunned supermarkets and grew their own food. He couldn't have a mass surveillance system if legions of people didn't waste time on Facebook and WhatsApp.
That's right.
He couldn't program you unless you volunteer to be glued to the TV and decide to be a couch potato. This is in sync with how a master teacher works. So when he teaches, for example, he can provide certain clues. He can provide certain hints and suggestions, but the growth part is our job. So this is why he says, he's told us before, if we don't ask the question, he cannot give us the answer. And that's why it took us so long to get from, to this point, to shun religion. Bottom line is our progression in this world, or lack thereof, is a function of what we do. It must organically come from us. It must be a groundswell of support that comes from the people. And it cannot come from outside of you. So instead of us abdicating personal responsibility and clinging to spiritual welfare, we have to recognize that the onus for our progress has always been on us and not on someone outside of us. So we may have a catalyzing agent, we may have an outside catalyst, but the true growth can only come from within. So with that said, he always told us that it is our job to get him out of prison. Now, I've heard reports that this man has been levitating in prison. I've heard this from many different sources. I'm not making this up. I didn't see it, but I've heard this. So I'm very clear that if he wants to get out of prison, he can do that. But he says that when we free him, we will free ourselves. And I'm not just talking about me. I'm just not just talking about Black Americans. I'm talking about the entire Black diaspora. I'm talking about all melanated people around the planet. I'm talking about all people around the planet that are identified as being melanated or melanin rich or indigenous. Because he is a son of Africa. He's part Sudanese from the Dongolowe tribe, and he's part Iwe tribe from the Akan clan, Ghanaian. And he's also part American, Native American Yamasee roots from the York family. The York family, as you know, you may not know, but they were a very prominent family. They were involved with the Lewis and Clark expedition. When they did the Lewis and Clark expedition, his ancestor was instrumental in being a scout to help them navigate the terrain. You know, he spoke different languages, and he also married the Native American Sacagawea. So he's tied, you know, one foot in America, one foot in Africa. So he's a son of Africa, and he's also a son of America. And his teachings, if you think that the job of freeing him falls not just on us, like I said, but to all people that have benefited from his teaching. So if you feel that way, you know, I definitely would ask for anybody's assistance. It doesn't have to be financial. It could be via a donation, of course, to one of our affiliated bookstores. It could also be, if you're so inclined, it could be, because I know finances are very, very tight for a lot of people. It could be many people's finances are in the toilet. So many people, the donation doesn't have to be financial. It could be by just spreading the information that we teach about him, you know. It could be watching and sharing a video that we have linked, that I can link to this, because one of the videos we have, it shows a lot of the people that were involved in the conspiracy to bring him down, admitting their role in the conspiracy. The video shows one of the star witnesses in the case, Habiba Washington, admitting that it was all a lie, and she was the one that recanted her story twice, and they still have him in jail, in prison. Then there were other people involved that admitted that they were involved in the conspiracy, and then it's just something that people want to see, because a lot of people think that this man is, in fact, a child molester. And that will definitely to clear the air for a lot of people. And even the attorneys is talking about how the sister of the brother, who was one of his sons, is pissed off at him, and he was the ringleader of the conspiracy, because he wanted to go into the music business and finance some records with Little Kim. And Dr. York, his name at the time, he said that he didn't want to have anything to do with that. So he was pissed off with him for that. And so he developed this conspiracy to bring his father down, and he was the ringleader of it. And the people involved in that, they admit this on videotape. And so what they brought him what people don't understand is when they did put him in prison, it wasn't for child molestation. Those charges, none of those charges even were able to stick. The charge that they put him in jail for had to do with RICO charges. And if anybody knows about RICO charges, RICO stands for Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organizations. That is a designation that is assigned to mafiosi type organizations. And that's what they use to put him into prison. So like I said, if you guys want to look at the video scripts, share the video, because right now we know that we have a certain window of time. They're busy trying to put their system in place, but we're also busy trying to free our brothers and sisters around the planet. And if you want to contact one of our store locations, I'll put a link, in the video. And anything that you do will definitely be for the benefit of all of us. So like I said, there'll be a video at the bottom, and this outlines a lot of the stuff that I talked about. And basically, we as human beings are responsible for the plight of this planet. When I say we, it may not mean you per se, but I mean I'm referring to humanity in the aggregate. Because when I learned about what the ruling Luciferians were doing to this planet, and I learned about the direction that they plan to take us in, my question was, what can we do, or can we stop this global hostile takeover, which is what it is. It's a global corporate hostile takeover. Can we stop this globalist juggernaut, this hydra-headed monster. Can we stop this hydra-headed monster from gobbling all of us up? You know, this question ties in with the strategic teaching style that was utilized by Panabab Yanun. Because he came to us with a feminine methodology. Not that he's feminine, he's very masculine. But he came to us with a feminine teaching methodology. He came to us with the so-called Socratic method, you know, with a series of questions to spark or jumpstart our critical thinking processes. He came with a Q&A, with what we call Q&A forums to exercise, that we use to exercise our powers of logic, appraisal, analysis, and critical thinking. So all the things that we lost owing to our generations of religious belief and intoxication, he did all this instead of using a direct or a frontal assault. It was kind of like a guerrilla style tactic. And you know, you use guerrilla tactics when you have a more powerful enemy to go up against, and that really indicates the prudence and the wisdom of a master tactician when he employed that type of methodology, because he was smart enough not to make a frontal assault against a well-entrenched enemy called religion and Western propaganda. Now, a less effective frontal attack or a direct assault on someone's religion, for example, would be considered masculine brute force energy. That's masculine brute force energy. In other words, feminine power, or the feminine power of persuasion, is superior to a direct attack of compulsion, a compulsory direct attack. And think about it, how can true development occur if all of this works? You know, if all the work is done for you? When that happens, you are really aborting your own spiritual development, you know? But this way, you become a part of a reciprocal or two-way learning process. Instead of having the truth rammed down your throat, it's like asking somebody to work out for you, you know? See how successful that's going to be. See how well your heart rate's going to be improved by having somebody else work out for you. You know, see how well your squat's going to improve if you have somebody do squats for you and you just stay at home. So basically, the answer to that question indicates that we, as collective members of humanity, are responsible for our current plight. And I was told that Yanun said that, you know, and I actually read the other night, he said that humanity has actually made a pact with these Luciferians, either wittingly or unwittingly. I'm just paraphrasing. Either wittingly or unwittingly in some shape, form, or fashion. And that has provided them with the tacit approval to steamroll over all of our rights. But he also said that if enough members of the human family choose freedom and independence over slavery and dependence, and again, I'm just paraphrasing, then the galactical forces of the universe will come to our assistance and remove this virus that has long plagued our planet. So the other option is to raise your level of vibration or vibrational consciousness, which is why I embraced this doctrine in the first place. So with all that being said, again, I appeal to the listening audience to help in any way they can, if it's only just sharing the information about his innocence. That in and of itself would be very much appreciated, because in the final analysis, all of us are in this together. And we do have a defense and repatriation program, because he is, in fact, a diplomat of Liberia. We have a legal defense, and we have a repatriation fund. I can actually put the link up for that. I do not have a financial interest in this. I'm doing this because this is coming from my heart.
Yes.
But while we still have this temporary communication medium, and I consider this a temporary communication medium, this internet, because they're going to shut this thing down at some point.
Exactly.
And that's what I wanted to say for tonight.
Wow. Powerful, brother. And you're right. About the internet, they're not going to let us be able to communicate like this. They want to shut that down. They want to make sure that we have great dependence on it. Exactly. Yep. Look how we depend on it now. If they cut YouTube alone and left the internet, madness would take to the streets. You see? So they're getting us nice and dependent on it. And so this is why I always say we must have direct communication with each other. Communication with each other. We can't trust everybody at first. But this is not a shameless plug. But like I said, sign up on Melanin Envy. get to know everybody directly. Even that, they'll probably shut me down completely. But get to know each other's addresses, those who you can trust, and try hard to establish trust amongst each other. Don't say, okay, you have to trust me. No, go the extra mile and show that you can be trusted. You know, when you meet somebody in person, give them a little more. You say, okay, we met in person after talking a while. This is what it's all about. This is what this other person's all about. And you have to vet each other, because we don't know who's not who isn't real, but we can't make that make it stop us from connecting. And then you go a little further and show that, hey, I know enough about this person that they're not going to just disappear on me or try to rip me off or whatever have you. We have to vet the agents, but we have to make the effort now. And it's not a risk, but make the effort to connect with each other. Even if you do it in stages where I'm not electing myself to be that one, but I have numbers and addresses of a lot of people here that is a start. So my thing is, I'm not going to give those things out, but you may say, hey, Lance, you know, is this the same or whatever? I'm checking this person out. We need to get through that and unify with each other, show the love to each other, and pool our resources. And understand that our community is not just in a certain neighborhood, but we have a worldwide community, a global community. We've got to stop thinking locally. We've got to stop thinking on a national level. They make us think nationally like nothing else is beyond. But it's a big world out there, and there are many people who look like us who have the same concerns. Who are us? Look at our brother from Ghana right now, this time of the day, listening in. And this time last year, I was in Ghana. Got there on the 25th of April and stayed till the 13th or 14th. And I was all up and down through those areas, not just in the tourist areas, but all through those different areas, those back roads, the Volta region, Kumasi, Cape Coast, Elmina, Accra, all up and down. You understand? So that's our brother over there. So we got to reach out beyond.
Yeah, those are brothers.
Exactly.
Yes, those are brothers and sisters over there.
And that's what I dedicate my life to. And I thank you so much, brother, for sharing this information, because this did not come easy overnight. You did a lot of reading to put this together like that. You're well acquainted and well knowledgeable of what you speak about, and you've made it easier for us. So we've got to share it and share these shows and other shows. It doesn't have to be just a LANCESCURV show, but any show that has any value to you, make sure to download it. Make sure to keep it recorded on various mediums.
All of these shows, they can download. They should download and have a hard copy, because another thing that I wanted to say with regard to preparedness, one thing I learned about preparedness is this. Yes, it's good to have supplies and have, food, have provisions for water, clothing, and shelter. It's important to have those things for medical related things. It's important to be self-sufficient. It's important to be independent of this system, because you know what they want. They want you to be dependent on them.
Of course.
It's important also for you to have the right books about to keep your morale up, because if the morale of the team goes down, then you're done. So to have your morale high, you need to have things to read to keep yourself occupied.
Exactly.
Yes. So you have to have, download this stuff and have it printed. I'm not trying to get rich. I'm just trying to get the information out. Get the information out and spread it like confetti.
Wow.
Spread it everywhere. And I read that some of the books that you can have, survival-wise or emergency preparedness-wise, would be things like, and I saw a top list from this site. One book was called Robinson Crusoe. That was a story from literature that we read, but this story dealt with how this man survived in the wilderness. And there's many clues that you can get from that book. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Then there's another book called the Hatchet that everybody should get, because it tells you the story of how this person survived with just a hatchet. And he was in the wilderness.
Wow.
So this is very, very important.
Yes, it is.
Very.
It is.
If you might need to know how to, say, use a tree for your nutrition. Did you know that they used to use certain trees and go into the flesh of certain trees, like pine trees?
Yes.
And take the matter from the tree and use that to bake bread?
Yeah.
Or to make soup?
Yeah.
Yeah, that can keep you alive.
Look at this: palm oil, palm wine. When I was in the Volta region, they had a big vat, and I have it on my channel. If you go back to the videos that from late April to mid-May last year, you'll see a lot of the videos from Ghana. That's all I did. You know what I mean? And I did have a faulty short in the audio on the wire, but the places where I was, I couldn't get a replacement. So some of the footage has little technical issues, but I walked around day and night with the camera, man, live streaming and videotaping. And when I do have a chance to visit again, hopefully very soon, I'm going to make sure that every moment, except for the time that I go to the bathroom, will be recorded and shared.
Yes, that's good. That is great. So,
yes.
Well, that's what I wanted to get off my chest. I just have to say that.
Thank you, brother.
Because people just need to know. And then now that they have the information, now the onus is off of me. Now it's on you.
Yes.
Once you guys have heard this, now you're responsible.
That's right.
I've done my job.
That's right. And that's our responsibility. So to take it further, to share it, to teach it to our children, don't just let it sit there. What good books if we can't talk about it and keep what's in those books alive? That's very, very important.
I'm going to send you a link. I'm going to send you a link to that site I saw about preparedness. It's very important.
I love it.
That list of books. I'm going to send you a list of books. And then I do want to have some talks that are very, very specific to nature and why it's so important for us to go back, which is basically going back to Mother Earth. Going back, because the matriarchy will be reestablished.
Of course.
Yes, this country will be destroyed. This is going to be destroyed. It's happened before, and it's going to happen again. This place will be destroyed.
That I know.
And the earth will be replenished, and you have to know where to go, and you have to have a guide to take you. Because in past times, the people either went into the inner earth, they went behind waterfalls, or they were taken off the planet.
Wow.
So you have to know where to go. You need a divine teacher to tell you where to go. I don't know any other teacher that can tell you where to go that has even claimed to tell you, I know where to go. Not one Christian minister will be able to make that claim. Not one Islamic minister or imam will be able to make that claim. So I'm rolling with this guy.
That's right.
You know how they say, I'm with her? I'm with him. But I'm with her too, because I'm all about the matriarchy.
That's right. Beautiful.
So the next time we talk, you guys are going to get some juicy information that proves, irrefutable proof I will provide about how women have been able to reproduce on their own. Irrefutable. And then I'll follow that up with information about exactly how the matriarchy was overthrown. Information from the history books that has been expunged. You'll never get this in school. Never. So I think I've talked long enough. And I do want to have another one, but I don't want to say when because I know that they're listening. So I want to get this whole matriarchy series out.
Yes. And I'm here just like tonight. You text me. I said, hey, I got a few things to do. I said, it doesn't matter how late, we're going to roll. As long as I take care of these little issues that I had from last night, I told you I'm like a fireman. We're here and we're going to do it. And I will put a peek out there also. We're going to be recording with Michael Hamer tomorrow night, or actually tonight. So yeah, we're going to keep the content coming. There's a whole bunch of interviews that I want to do. The one with Vibrant or Isa Muhammad, we're gonna do over again. There's a whole lot of content. One thing I want to say, boycott the Chinese, y'all. No matter where they are in the world, they got to feel it. I don't care how nice they are to you. If they're hurting us in one part of the country, it doesn't matter if they've been nice to me for 10 years. If they're not standing up for what's right, they're full of it. Boycott. I'm gonna make up a hashtag. We're gonna come with it, and we're gonna just boycott them. You understand? Because they don't care about us. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Well,
go ahead, brother.
Oh no, I was just gonna say all the nail salons are closed now. They're not making any money.
Good.
That's good.
Good.
That's good.
Good. Get them out of the neighborhood. Get them out of our countries all over the world. Get them out of our pocketbook. They don't mean us any good. They're not employing any of us, and if they did, they wouldn't do us right. But I don't care.
They're trying to emulate their masters.
asked us, we're going to drop those books and everything. So please just let me know. Just let me know, brother, and we're going to do this again. I'm hearing
Okay, great.
I'm hearing there's no sound right now for some reason. I don't know what happened. Well, look, at least it waited to this long, right? Let me do a little something real quick before we ease off. Hold on. Okay, let's see if this sound comes back. It should. Okay, let me know in the room. Even though we're getting ready to get off, we have 6 more minutes before the other show comes. When they say that audio is back, that tells me what the problem was. It's a faulty short in the phone coming out my, in the wire coming out of my phone. All of that I did, that's what it was. So I'm going to replace this tomorrow. So these go really quick because I really run these things down. But yeah, thank you for being patient with the sound. My brother, it's always a pleasure. And thank you, Ella G, and everybody in the room to let me know that the sound went off for a little while, but it wasn't much. It was just for a few seconds. And I'm going to drop the link again to this next show that I recorded earlier. I think it's kind of interesting if you want to roll with it. And you let me know, brother, and I will be there within hours or immediately, because I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff on the site, a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So I'll be sitting here and I'll be waiting. I'm going to spend a lot of time this week. I have 2 weeks worth of work to do in about 2 days, and I'm going to do it if I have to stay up all night. Tonight I'm going to rest. But once this week comes in, boom, we're going for it. You know what I mean? Because we got other things to do. So anyway, brother, you have a wonderful night, and reach out to me. Send me some list of books that I can drop in this link when it finishes.
I definitely will.
Okay?
Definitely will.
All right?
I will.
And thank you so much.
Brother.
Thank you so much,
brother. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Always, my brother.
Peace.
All right.
All right.
Much love.
Good night.
All right.
Bye-bye.
My notice, I lost my love. To the groove, out of the I noticed, I lost my love. To the groove, out of the I noticed, I lost my love. Lost my love. To the groove, out of the I noticed I lost my love. To the groove, out of the I noticed I lost my love.
Thank you so much, Ella G. Thank you so much for everybody who's here. Our next show starts in 3 minutes, so let's rock this song one more time before we end this, and hit that link that I'm dropping there for you so you can join the next chat room, and we're going to start it all over again. So that's going to be a good long show that we do. I recorded it earlier, and I kind of went off and ranted and got down deep and crazy. So let's do this again, and we're going to hit that link, open up another screen and hit that link so that you can see that show again. Here we go.
My notice, I lost my love. To the groove, out of the I noticed I lost my love. To the groove, out of the I noticed I lost my love.
Okay, we're going to end this now. Let's jump over to the next link that I sent to you. For the next show, we're going to start in under 1 minute. So long. The chat room over there is open. Take care. Much love. Thanks for tuning in.